When it comes to good writing, less is more. And yet, in 1960's Tales to Astonish, the rampaging tree being known as Groot sported such classics as "Behold, I am Groot the Invincible, who dares defy me?" and "Groot is the monarch of Planet X, overlord of all the timber in the galaxy," which is a strange thing for a tree to say, sort of like saying, "I'm king of all the meat." When Groot returned almost 50 years later, he said less. "I am Groot, I am help. See Groot help." This was still a bit much, so the writers pruned his vocabulary to just 3 words. That might not sound like a lot to work with, but in 2014, a young, hopeful boy named Vin, who some said was too fast and too furious for the screen, would take those 3 words and make an absolute fortune. They say money doesn't grow on trees, but he sure made a lot of paper.
I'm Groot. I'm Groot. I am Groot.
I am Groot. These words can mean anything, and in this case, they mean that if you're enjoying this channel, then don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the Groot. Welcome to another installment in my Painting Marvel Anatomy series. In this series, I take you behind the scenes on the creation of this book in an attempt to demystify my creative process and empower you to build worlds. Today's subject, Groot, the living tree. Groot is a Flora Colossus, one of the last of his kinds, an alien being made entirely of dendronic wood. Groot is tough. The cellulose fibers that compose his being grant him exceptional strength and durability. He's impervious to projectiles, even fire. He can augment himself with the plant life around him, make himself bigger and stronger. His only weakness? Termites. But how does Groot's biology even work? Well, today we're going to answer that question. Not only am I the illustrator of Marvel Anatomy, I also recently took a 3-hour course called How to Keep Your Houseplants Alive. So yeah, I'm kind of an expert. Pterophytes, bryophytes, phalophytes? Phalophytes? Thallophytes. And by the end of today's video, you too will be an expert in Grootiology. Also, by the end of today's video, you will have a chance to win an autographed copy of Marvel Anatomy. Stay tuned. Before we dive in, a word from our sponsor, FlexiSpot Standing Desks. I have been using a standing desk for almost 10 years now. I know that I look very young, like not even 20 maybe, but I'm actually 40 plus, and I write and make art all the time. When I'm working, I need to mix it up. And this is why I use the FlexiSpot Standing Desk E7. I can sit, I can stand, I can sort of awkwardly stoop in the middle, but I don't like to do that one very much. The frame is stable, even when I'm hacking away at my art. The frame can hold up to 355 pounds with almost no wobble, capable of supporting even Groot himself. Easy to assemble, the FlexiSpot E7 is a reliable workhorse for writers and artists alike. And with the programmable keypad, I could switch to any preset height I want with the push of a button. I need flexibility and movement while I work. And unless your body is made out of wood, you do too. Ask yourself, how many hours a day do you spend sitting at your desk, and how do you feel when you finally get up? For me, the answer is like 7 hours a day and like trash, but not anymore. Consider a standing desk. Consider this standing desk, the FlexiSpot E7. Click the link in my bio for more. All right, today we're going to draw Groot in cross-section. We're going to look at the layers of his form and figure out how he works. To do this, and to break down the intention of our drawing today, let's analyze Groot through our 5 basic questions. Question number 1, what is Groot's personality? In the movies, Groot is pretty cuddly, but he's also fierce and a little scary, which is reflected in the comics. And so while I make some cuddly images for the book, most notably an illustration of how to grow your own baby Groot, I will be going with pretty terrifying. Question number 2, what is Groot's body type? As we've seen time and again, Groot's body is pretty changeable, but he's primarily tall and rangy, meaning he has long limbs and a long body. After all, the Finnish word for large is Groot. And given that he's made of dendronic wood, we can expect his silhouette to be full of bristling sticks and branches. Number 3, what is Groot's color and pattern? Well, Groot is wood and bark color. He's mostly brown with a little bit of green, but for the sake of art and science both, we'll be making things a little bit different inside with a pale, fresh bamboo color. Here, this is the color palette I'll be drawing from. Number 4, what is Groot's primary reference? The movie version is iconic. But I want to pay homage to the comics, which leaves me a lot of variations to choose from. As for a real-life reference, well, Groot is a tree, albeit one gifted with a grasp of quasi-dimensional superpositional engineering, but Groot is also a collection of interlocking wooden vines. Banyan trees, with their wild root and branch structures, provide a happy medium. Number 5, what makes Groot iconic? Groot is, in essence, an Ent, so what makes him special and original? I think it's his head. Groot's face has changed in all sorts of ways over the years, but he's recognizable from the way his head flares up and then lops off at the top, like a stump. Groot is big, so to express this, I'll draw him striding across the middle of the spread, as if even 2 pages cannot contain him. He'll be bent over with his long arms swinging. I'm including a few of these bioluminescent spores because, well, they look cool. Even though he's built of dendronic wood, I'm still relying on basic human biology to inform where I place the large forms, like the trapezius muscle and the flow of the forearms. I want his hand to be huge and claw-like. Wood is not soft, neither is Groot. By the time I transition this work to my iPad, however, I've softened him up a bit. He's more human-looking, like in the movies. I've also added a brown color to paint in his bones. Wait, does Groot have bones? No, not really. But as I delve into the illustration, past the pose itself and into the contents of the pose, I'm beginning to think through what an alien being like Groot would need to just be. Let's start inking, and I'll explain. I've drawn Groot with his leg, arm, and, excuse the pun, trunk exposed, so that you can get a sense of how he's built. But just to make things clear, I'm also drawing this detail image to show off the 4 basic layers of Groot's anatomy. Here's an overview of what I'm thinking. The first layer, which is nestled in the center of Groot's body, are the bones. Again, Groot does not have bones, but neither do octopuses, and they don't really do well on land. They sort of just collapse into a puddle. To stand up while keeping one's essential form intact requires rigidity. So I've decided to add a few gnarled pieces of older, denser wood through his middle. These pieces are quite different from real bones in that they're asymmetrical and rather randomly placed. Like bones, however, they're very hard, porous, and lightweight. The living tendrils of wood that compose the majority of Groot's body use this rigidity as an aid and a lattice on which to grow. The second layer is the closest Groot has to organs and fat. Living things need water and nutrients, and plants are no different, so I've come up with this soft, fibrous material like you'd see splitting open a plant. Groot is not rooted to the ground, nor does he have many leaves, so he doesn't get a regular infusion of water and sunlight. This pulpy layer is, in essence, Groot's reserve of liquid nutrition. Groot calls on this reserve whenever he needs to. The third layer are the moving, sliding, interconnected dendrite formations that form the bulk of Groot's body. These tendrils act as his muscles and are the engines of his movement. This layer can move, push, pull, grow, and retract. Basically, this is how Groot does like 90% of the awesome things that he does. And lastly, this final layer, the bark, acts as a sort of exoskeletal armor. These plates are strong enough to withstand heavy firepower. Unlike the so-called bones, they're extremely lightweight. They're also home to other smaller plants and fungus. Like all trees, Groot is a biome unto himself. All right, this is coming along very well, but it's time to add color. As we make this transition, I think that now is a good time to remind you that if you're enjoying this channel, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I've made anatomy videos on Venom, Wolverine, Daredevil, Vision, Storm, Spider-Man. I've made videos explaining how I made the monsters for Fallout. I made a documentary about how we built Skyrim. I made fan art of Doom and Elden Ring, and I'm about to unleash my new graphic novel, Quiet Level 1, here on this YouTube channel. Stay tuned, you don't want to miss it. Okay, let's start coloring. Step 1 in the coloring process is the blocking out of forms. This takes a little while because Groot's silhouette is all sticks. I'm starting with a neutral desaturated brown for the body, after which I'll add in the coffee-colored bones and then a lighter khaki color for the interior. None of these colors are final. I'll tune them as we go and then try to reach some kind of attractive balance. Once this initial work is done, I'll start adding shadows. This is a time-consuming process, but as I mentioned before, I find it pretty relaxing. I just listened to an audiobook. I think I was listening to Cloud Atlas here, And then I pick a direction that the light is coming from and paint shadows on the other side. I'm using a sort of dark green to offset the brown and just painting it in softly. Once that's mostly in place, I try adding some light. The thing I'd like to note about this lighter color that I'm using, which is slightly redder than the brown, is that it's a highlight, a place where Groot's surface is getting more light than average. I just spent a while adding shadows to my image, which means that anywhere I didn't put shadows already has light on it by default. Because wood is dull, I'm using this highlight color sparingly and not in any concentrated amounts. If wood was shiny, like metal, these highlights would be brighter and sharper. Once that basic coloring is in place, I add in a slightly brighter, slightly fresher green to the tendrils of roots inside him. I want this dendronic wood to appear fresher, newer, more alive. It's rather tricky trying to achieve a balance of color and value here, but I'm doing my best. Then, just like the exterior wood, I shade this layer. This is slightly more involved as the tendrils of wood slide around each other, disappearing deep into the body and reappearing elsewhere. I start to shade the soft, pulpy layer surrounding the bones. From there, it's off to one of my favorite parts of the painting process. I start to add the background color back in, especially around the edges. This is the equivalent of side lighting the character. I'm pretending that the background is throwing light onto Groot's form. This allows me to add textural information, to create enhanced levels of detail where before there was none, and it contributes to the sense that there's an actual atmosphere in this picture. These individual details are rather subtle, but their overall impact is pretty huge. As I go, I'll sort of bounce back and forth between the images, just because working on one image gives me ideas about how to approach the other, and because it keeps things fresh. With the fundamentals in place, I adjust colors, revisit layers, add highlights, and try to add details like mushrooms and lichen. As I do this, let's talk about one of Groot's most powerful abilities, regeneration. Not only can Groot replace any part of his body, but every single piece of Groot contains his complete consciousness. So even if he's reduced to a single splinter, Groot has the ability to fully restore himself in just weeks or months. And that leads us to the eternal question. If you planted multiple splinters, would they grow into multiple Groots? The answer is yes. However, given the psychic link Groot shares with plants and other offshoots of himself, he's able to manipulate the composition of these clones and has even been observed creating aggressive iterations for combat deployment. In short, you can grow multiple nearly identical Groots, but eventually one of them will assume control of the primary personality. Now, Marvel didn't ask for this, but I just had to include a baby Groot in the book, twice. I included him once in the book to describe how a Groot splinter planted in soil will grow. With enough time and care and love, your Groot will root, develop an abundance of leaves to better absorb sunlight, and finally, after sufficient rest, awaken. I also included baby Groot on the cover of the special edition of Marvel Anatomy. That's right, I enjoyed painting Groot so much that I painted him and Rocket all over again for the cover. Okay, so as I finish today's painting, I'll spend a little time integrating this image of Groot with the text in the book. This is not the most exciting step, but it's necessary when you're illustrating Marvel's one and only biological compendium. So, fine. I make final adjustments, I push and I pull to make things fit, etc., etc. Now, on to the question. How do you win an autographed copy of Marvel Anatomy? Well, as many of you might know, I'm releasing my first graphic novel, Quiet Level 1, on Kickstarter in just a few weeks. I'm really excited. This is a relatively small beginning to something that's going to be huge. One day, Quiet Level 1 will be a game, a movie, a series. But for right now, it is starting life as a graphic novel. Pardon my language, but it's going to be awesome. Anyone who clicks the link below and signs up for my QL1 newsletter, The Tree of Worlds, will be entered to win this. I'll even write a little dedication in the inside cover just for you. The Tree of Worlds is a totally free resource designed for creative world builders of all kinds, and that means you. And that's it. Just click the link below, enter email, and you're entered. Follow the project on Kickstarter now through the link and secure your special early bird gift. Do not miss this. Okay, Groot is just about done. Here's the sketch that I started with. Here's the ink drawing in its full resolution. A lot of little lines in this one. Here's the image colored with just solid colors. And here it is finished with shading and detail and highlights. And for anyone looking closely, yes, that is a squirrel sleeping in Groot's chest. Just one of the many Easter eggs I put into this book as I put into all my work. It is paradoxical, perhaps, that good fantasy, which can be viewed as an escape from the real world, requires that its creator pay close attention to the real world. You cannot build a convincing universe without first studying our own. Trees are awesome. Trees can live for hundreds or thousands of years. This tree was alive when woolly mammoth roamed the earth. They can speak to each other through their roots. They can store energy in their bodies. They can grow back when they're burned or destroyed, cool the climate by providing shade, increase wildlife habitats, and improve the land's capacity to adapt to climate change. Nature is incredible. Thank you so much for watching. In honor of Groot, let me close out with just a few words in Flora Colossus. I am Groot. I am Groot. I am Groot. I am Groot. Quiet level 1. I am Groot. I am Groot. I'm Groot.